Good morning. This week we read Parshas Vayera, which talks about the revelation of God many times, as many as 7 times, mostly to Abraham, God appears. But there is revelation even to those who are not very, very high and spiritual because they were associated with Abraham, such as Hagar, when Abraham sends Ishmael away. The final chapter of this Torah portion, God appears to Abraham and asks Abraham to make the ultimate sacrifice. The ultimate sacrifice is not himself, but his future, the one that he loves more than anyone in the world, and that's his only son from Sarah. He had another son whom he loved very dearly, but truth be told, Isaac is the heir for whom he has lived for all of his life. And God asks him to bind Isaac on the altar on Mount Moriah and offer him as a sacrifice. And Abraham does so willingly, without any hesitation. Now Abraham at that moment was 137 years old. Even if you say he was very strong for his age, Isaac was 37, was 100 years younger, and at the height of his strength. He must have known, Isaac must have known that he was going to be the sacrifice. No child willingly goes and allows himself to be killed. Why does the Torah not talk about a struggle? The answer that I have is that Isaac willingly laid himself down on the altar because he knew that his father was convinced that he had a direct connection to God, and he saw everything in his father's household. And therefore, if his father was going to use him as a sacrifice, so be it. This obviously had to be God's will, or else Abraham would never have done so. And so Abraham was about to sacrifice his beloved son when an angel from God appeared and says, "No, that's enough. I wanted to see whether you were willing to do so, but not that you have to do so." And because of this, the children of Abraham and Isaac are blessed for all generations, that they become the chosen people for all times. Of course, Muhammad altered this in the Quran. Unfortunately, for those who believe in the Quran, the Jews did not hate the Quran and change their books. The Jewish books were translated into Greek 4 centuries before the Common Era, or 1,000 years before the Quran. And in every one of those Greek translations it says that God told Abraham to offer his child Isaac, not Ishmael. Several centuries later, the Vulgate translated the Bible, the Chumash, the Jewish books, into Latin. The Vulgate, which also precedes Muhammad by several hundred years, also identifies the child as Isaac. This is not because the Latins, the Romans, loved the Jews against the Arabs, or that the Greeks loved the Jews more than the Arabs. It's a lot of baloney. They would not have changed the translation if it had said Ishmael. But that's an aside. Isaac was asked, and Isaac put his neck on the line and allowed himself to be offered as a sacrifice. But after God intervened, we do not find Isaac with Abraham at all. And the question that I always had was why? Why is Isaac not there? Midrashim say, the homiletics of the traditions of our people say, Isaac spent the next period of time in paradise. He was so frightened, or he'd been overwhelmed by this experience, that he needed a break, and he was in a spiritual world. Of course, if this is the tradition, we must accept it. But if this is a homiletic, a speculation, there might be a different interpretation here. And even though this runs against traditional interpretation, I'm using the permission of Rabbi Chaim ibn Attar, the Orach Chaim, to translate it as I see it, as long as I don't change the rules. Isaac was totally devoted to God and to his father. But after the Akedah, and after the shock of the Akedah, what was going through Isaac's mind? What was Isaac thinking? And I will suggest something that is extraordinary, and most people that look like me will say that Bergstein is absolutely wrong. And so be it. If I'm wrong, I'll be happy to admit that I'm wrong. Isaac was upset with his father. His father could not pray on Isaac's behalf as he did on behalf of the wicked, because this was personal. The people of Sodom deserved punishment, and Abraham tried to prevent the punishment, that perhaps they would be changed. Isaac was not deserving of punishment. The sacrifice of Isaac was to offer the purest, holiest, best as a sacrifice. And therefore, there was nothing that Avram could do. This was not because of some kind of fault of Isaac. On the contrary, because of his greatness, because of how wonderful he was and how much he meant to Avraham, this was the perfect sacrifice, the most complete sacrifice that Avraham could possibly offer unto God. But here lies the caveat, here lies the problem. Despite the fact that he could not beg for mercy on Isaac's person, there's still the question, why didn't Avram say, take me instead? Let me be sacrificed instead of my son. Wouldn't this have been the fatherly thing to do? In fact, we know that the result of a person's prayers and a person's actions, that they create an angel. Who is the angel of mercy that intervenes and blocks the execution or the sacrifice of Isaac? Who is this angel? We don't know. Just an angel from God. But we read also in next week's Rashi that Sarah was aware that Isaac was ready to be sacrificed, and at that moment she died, without any explanation as to what happened, what transpired. My teacher, my Rosh Hashiva, Reb Moshe Lando, expressed that he almost died, and she was upset that perhaps he had sinned and wasn't worthy as a sacrifice, and that's the reason why she died. My opinion is different. In my opinion, she said to God, wait, is there another way? Take me instead. I'm his mother. I also have not sinned in my life. Let me be the sacrifice. And that exchange was made instantaneously. She died, at that very moment that Abraham was going to sacrifice Isaac. And the angel of mercy, the angel who told Abraham not to sacrifice Isaac, was really the product of her prayer of exchanging herself for her son. And so Isaac, knowing this, wondered why his father didn't try to do this himself. Take me, God. I have been perfect in your faith. There is no one more perfect in this world than I. Let me be the sacrifice. Why didn't he try to exchange himself for his son? Why didn't he even think of it? And perhaps Isaac resented this. Look, he prayed on behalf of killers, rapists, thugs, lowlifes, the entire population of Sodom and Gomorrah, who are the dregs of humanity. When we describe people who are evil, we say that they're people of Sodom. For Sodom, he prayed with all his heart. For me, he could not have stood up even a split second. What kind of a father is this? And therefore, in my opinion, Isaac left his father and only came back later. Later, when Avraham was concerned about him, totally concerned and totally devoted to him, despite the fact that he had moved away, that Avraham was willing to give him his entire wealth in order to marry the proper woman. When he realized that his father truly loved him and was willing to give everything for him, that's when Isaac comes back. But let's now look at the Parsha and see how this reflects upon attitudes of people. Isaac said, you care more about others than you care about your own son. In other words, there's a critique that is clear that's coming from the Torah, that one must be concerned first and foremost about those who are close than those who are far. Compassion cannot be directed only to those that are outside of us, because that would indicate we just want adulation, we want popularity. But to care for those whom you must care for, that's a lot harder. Furthermore, how do you care about the people around you? Cory Booker suggests we should give each child $50,000. Who's going to pay for that? Oh, the rich. There aren't enough rich people to pay those things, those kinds of monies. Number one. Number two, why should you give a person a gift of $50,000? People come to this country with just their hands and their feet, and they work hard and work themselves up and become part of the country. And that happened to every ethnic group in this country. They came, they worked, and they became part of the fabric of the society. Giving a handout to a person tells the person he need not work, that he's deserving just because he is, which is the wrong message to give a person. When a person is hungry, you must feed them. If they have no clothing, you must clothe them. But you don't have to make them rich. That's not how you care for people. You care for people by giving them the incentive to go and do what they can do, and then they can travel and go as high as they may fly. They can go as high as they can, utilizing their God-given talents. Giveaways, takeaways, have created a bondage for an entire generation of poor. Not just one generation, it's already 3 generations since the assault, since the war on poverty. And the same people are just as poor as they were before, just as uneducated, because you gave them no incentive to pick themselves up by their bootstraps. You just gave them an excuse why they shouldn't have to do anything. So the lesson from the Parsha is, you must care for your own. And caring for your own is not giving them a handout. Caring for your own is teaching them the proper way to do things, and to do things on their own. And there's another episode in the Torah as well. Yishmael, who is the half-brother of Isaac, becomes unruly and becomes dangerous to the life of Isaac. And Sarah says to Abraham, I know that you love Yishmael, but Yishmael is violent and he may murder my son. You must send him away. This was hard for Abraham to do as a man of compassion and kindness, to send away one of his children, but send him away he did, because this would endanger his other son. And it wasn't good not just for Isaac, it wasn't good for Yishmael as well. Knowing that God would bless Yishmael, and Yishmael would succeed, as the Arab nations have succeeded throughout the history. But you see from here a profound lesson. You cannot allow people to come in or to stay in your home if they are dangerous to the people who are there in the home. Bringing in an element that makes it more difficult for the people who are already here, bringing an element who might be dangerous to the people who are here, this is not fear-mongering. This is the following, that your first and foremost allegiance has to be those who are close to you, who are here already. Then you can be compassionate and bring people in as long as they do not endanger, and as long as they don't make things worse for the population. Compassion does not mean you bring, let's give a hypothetical. There are 7 billion people in this world. Half of the children of the world go hungry at night. Can this country feed half of the children of the world? Of course not. They can't do it. Can't do it by themselves. We have to teach the peoples of the world to feed their own children and how to feed their own children. We have to be compassionate to those who come. Yes, the caravan should not be dealt with cruelly. Yes, give them food and water and a one-way bus ticket back home, and maybe give them an additional $100 in their pocket for spending money. And that's the way to deal with them. Not bring them in and then have them overload the cities who are in the south with children who can't read and write English, who may be dangerous to younger children because they're older semi-adults, as has happened in countless cases in this country. We're not talking about gangs. We're talking about the fact that mature kids see young girls as easy victims. And this is what happens all the time. Furthermore, there may not be enough jobs in certain places in the country. And you're saturating certain southern border towns with a lot of immigrants for jobs that should be given to the people who are already there. You can bring people in, but at a regulated rate, which makes sense. You also have to know who's coming in, what kind of people are coming in, whether they're legitimate people, whether they have a true need for asylum. But this kind of thing can't be done by attacking the borders. You see, Yishmael, who was a citizen, was expelled because he was dangerous to another citizen. How much more so somebody who does not belong can't be absorbed without some kind of vetting process. And with that, I wish all of you Shabbat Shalom.